This video is going to be in the category of advice that you commonly hear that's for time management, life management, that makes complete sense but may not for you if you have an ADHD brain. And like most of these kind of comments and discussions, there's a lot that I could say that could resonate with anybody. Everybody's different, and you can't put people neatly into boxes. But I think some of these things are unique to the typical or common experience of an ADHD person. And that bit of advice I was listening to by someone being interviewed on a 10% Happier podcast was to finish things. And interestingly, the podcast overall was talking about how to be sanely productive, I think is the name of it. And I regret that I can't remember the name of the guy. But as I come up with that, I'll drop it in the notes. But the irony here to me is that his overall advice was kind of letting go of perfectionism, giving yourself a bit of a break in managing things and not being so militant and not being so structured even, and basically functioning like a human being within it. And so much of it, which is a theme that I like to emphasize, is giving yourself a break and loosening up the tensions around this stuff. But this particular piece of advice in finishing a project, I think is problematic because for an ADHD person, that's, you've got a bunch of different projects started, and I actually have taken a different tact on this, which is giving yourself permission to walk away. And I think that, I completely throw out the advice of doing one task at a time because it's just not how our brains work. And so that's a different video, or 2 or 5. That said, this thing about finishing, clearly finishing tasks feels really good. And there are times when that's going to be beneficial. And some of that is feeling it out. Give yourself permission to ask the question. And I think any given decision or day or project is different. But I want to give you permission to not finish. I think the advice of being able to walk away is not just freeing, but maybe even productive. I think I've realized all these undone projects I have around, my version of finishing it can sometimes be just either packing it in a box and putting it away for a time when I feel inspired to do it, but also when you start folding in this idea of letting go, especially if you go with the Buddhist philosophy and meditative point of attachment, letting some projects go altogether, it can be the freeing part. And sometimes just getting started on the project and it had its service in the moment. This is sort of like a Marie Kondo version of your projects in your life. If it doesn't give you a spark anymore, some things you probably, just be careful of that word. If you have to, or you shift your thinking, you really do want to finish it, maybe just having a hard time getting the motivation to do it, that's a different thing. And you take a little different tact in reaching out to pull another source for the motivation, a different topic. But when you really contemplate on that and consider a project, have walking away be one of the options. And there's a couple different ways that can happen. You can ask for help to do it for certain projects. And if you're in that position, you can hire to have it done. Say some of the yard projects where actually it makes sense to have a kid come in and, help with some of this. Maybe it's putting it in a box, like I said, and putting it away for a time when you might be re-inspired to touch back on it, and it gives you some happiness just to kind of know it's there. Just be okay with it. You're finding the place where you're okay with whatever it is you choose to do. And sometimes it really is walking away. I have some projects that I started that I realized this just isn't going to be in my world again, and I can let it go. And if it does come in my world again, I'll start a different one. And finding people that are interested in picking up on that project. My aunt likes cross-stitching, so I'm giving her some of those past projects. And sometimes it's just what it depends on the project, but take it apart in the bits and let it move on down the road. So I would just respectfully disagree that finishing your started project is not always the answer. Sometimes the answer is walking away, whether temporarily or permanently. I think the ADHD brain in particular, and I know certainly for me, I realize that having multiple projects and letting yourself be inspired to jump into something is okay. And it feeds your soul, it feeds your energy. It can give you the energy to do some of the things that you need to do that aren't so exciting. It creates a balance in your life if you let it and quit judging it according to how so many people do. But it's all about keeping it in balance. And the trick is keeping it in balance for you. And that takes time to develop what that is. And I think you try on a lot of these different approaches. But that really triggered something in me about this. You have to finish every project. Toss out the word have to, always. Never say never. But I think in this case, really loosen up those judgments and really kind of internalize the question and contemplation of, is that the right advice for you? Is it the right advice for you at this time for this project? And open up the realm of possible options to letting yourself walk away. You don't have to finish everything. And maybe it served its purpose and that's now done. And you can let it go, and that's okay. And that's what I'm here to do, is mostly help give some other people the freedom to make choices that may not fit within the box of your typical self-help advice. So with that, thank you. See you soon.